morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Dharma friends, I see people from England, America, Malaysia, Australia, India, Dubai, one from Japan, I think. So I believe we have a question.
It seems mudita, empathetic joy, is less emphasized in Dharma talks and meditation. Why is that the case? How important is it? How should we cultivate it? Thank you.
So it is true, as far as I've observed, that Mudita Brahmavihara is not mentioned or taught very much. When Lord Buddha gave his instructions on cultivating the Brahmaviharas to the bhikkhus, he taught them, when it comes up in the sutras, he often teaches them as all four. So his instructions are that one should cultivate loving kindness, spread it north, east, south, west, northeast, southeast, all directions, above and below. And then the same with compassion, same with mudita, and the same with equanimity. So Lord Buddha's instructions are to become adept and cultivate all four of the Brahmaviharas. But in a lot of what people hear is, in the practice tradition, is these days, it's more of an emphasis on metta, and in the Mahayana, a lot of emphasis upon compassion. In some respects, loving kindness and compassion will get similar results. So all of these Brahmaviharas have a function of pacifying and weakening negative qualities in the mind that eat away at clarity and well-being and prevent the arising of samadhi. So metta and compassion, if you have metta and compassion for a person, you won't indulge in ill will, for example, or you won't indulge in a grudge, or you won't want to take revenge. So in a way, focusing on metta and compassion is effective. But in terms of understanding what these qualities are, what Brahmaviharas, divine abidings, are the antidote to, this is where it becomes helpful. So if I'm just going to talk about the way I think, what I think mudita helps with. And so firstly, a quality that's very close to mudita in my experience is gratitude. This is a very good way to come into the mudita citta. And you think of, we were talking the other week about the 16 upakilesa. So those are qualities which darken the mind. They kind of eat away at radiance and spaciousness, and they make the mind dark and cluttered. There is a verse in sutras, I can't remember exactly which Pitaka that it's in, but it goes something like, the mind is luminous and adventitious kilesas darken it. So that's a very important statement, because it means at heart, the mind's potential is purity. Sometimes the Ajahn Achalo would talk about our real home. Some people talk about original mind. Some people talk about, in the Zen tradition, base, ground, luminosity. Tibetan tradition talks about the mind of clear light. You get these kind of affirming statements come up often about the potential or the true nature of mind. But this word, the kilesa, are adventitious. What does that mean? It means that they can take advantage of a situation. They kind of can get in. And then when they get in, they kind of multiply. And if you act on the mind states of kilesa, you deepen your karmic connection with them, and then they will ripen again in the future and more often. It's the same with the Brahmaviharas. This is why I think we have to cultivate them. Because if we habituate ourselves with qualities that are intrinsically wholesome, which brighten the mind, that kind of word, divine abiding, is a very helpful. Lord Buddha chooses his words carefully, and he's telling us that these are a divine abiding, something that makes the mind, when cultivated a lot, like a Brahma, deities, radiant, and that these qualities in the Tibetan tradition often called the immeasurables, because there's no limit to how far they can be cultivated. But similarly with kilesa, there's probably also no limit to how dark the mind can become. And that's why we have many different hell realms going down lower and lower and lower. But this human realm is in the middle. I'm sure you've noticed, somewhere between heaven and somewhere between hell. And sometimes a bit of both. And so, yeah, I used to wonder, I used to have doubts when I was a layman if hell really existed. I used to have doubts about an all-powerful creative God, and I used to have doubts about hell. Now I have no doubts about hell. And when you see some of the types of bad karma that people make, how greedy, how selfish, how hateful a conscious being is capable of becoming, then you understand, yes, when people really plot and plan to do evil things and do those things and cause incredible harm, they will have to experience the consequence of that. So yeah, hells exist. And so when looking at the kilesas, speaking of mudita, jealousy is one of them, isaya, envy. And then in terms of like the laws of causality, dependent co-arising, we have to have a look at how things progress. So often if a person is jealous of a person, then they start to feel like if one doesn't have mindfulness, the progression can go like, they shouldn't have got that promotion, I deserve it more. And then that can become self-righteousness. I'm right, they're wrong. When that gets into the mind, then you can start justifying things. Because I'm right and they're wrong, I can take revenge, or I can punish them. So the kilesas delude the self-view, and it can take you on a trip. Now you see in America, people rioting, like there's groups called themselves anti-fascist, and because you think fascists are bad, you have a right to go and beat them up or shoot them or destroy their property because they're the bad people. It's like, if you look at it from an objective mind state, that is crazy. But if you look at how that happened, they believe that their political views are right. They believe that the other people's political views are wrong. Because they're right and those people are wrong, they can vilify them. When they vilify them, they see them as less than human. When they see them as less than human, they don't have the same rights as them. And many people who have been dictators in the past will do this. They will pick up part of the population to vilify and inflame people's self-righteous anger to cause conflict, divide and conquer. You can get people fighting. People with not very wholesome agendas can try to slip their agenda through. So in terms of that's kind of societally, we see that happen often. But in terms of one's own mind, you don't want to be deluded by your mind states. Jealousy is a potentially very dangerous thing. And if you really feel that someone has something that you want, and if you think you deserve it more, well, what's to stop you from just going and taking it? In terms of things, then you get into the realm of breaking precepts, taking what isn't given. And so mudita is an antidote to envy. And mudita, we have to understand also karma. So people get the opportunities and the things that they have because of good deeds they did in the past. Some people will be thinking, but what about evil people who get things in unwholesome ways? Yes, it's true. Sometimes people get things that way. But even the fact that they have the opportunity, that is coming from their past merits. If someone's in a position where they can get something through unskillful means, the fact that they have that opportunity is also due to past merits. Now they're destroying their merit, they're making bad karma, they're going backwards by doing that. But the fact that they have opportunities that they misuse, that is coming from past merit. So things like competition. Competition is another of the kilesas. So, and then there can be links. Like if you get jealous, that can lead to resentment, grudge holding, and as we were talking about, self-righteousness, then justifying unskillful actions. So these things are very dangerous. If they darken the mind, cloud the mind, we become deluded by them, then we start having unskillful thoughts, unskillful speech, unskillful actions, and we start binding ourselves to the wheel of rebirth ever more. We bind ourselves with thicker and thicker ropes of greed, hatred, and delusion. So we don't want to do that. So I think in terms of which Brahma Vihara to cultivate, we have to have mindfulness of what qualities, in terms of kilesa, which are the frequent flyers. You have to have enough mindfulness to see which ones come around most often, which ones are causing the most problems. And be careful of this self-righteous indignation and justifying. This is why a couple of weeks ago we went through the list of kilesas. We have to recognize a negative quality as a negative quality. Forget the story, why you might justify having such an emotion or a feeling or a reaction. Resentment, grudge, anger, competitiveness, jealousy, any of these things. We just have to accept that these are negative qualities that darken the mind and obstruct our ability to realize ultimate truth and be liberated. So we have to recognize a negative quality as a negative quality and try to let it go. Sometimes these things are very tenacious and not easy to let go. That's when we have to cultivate the Brahma Viharas, because these are antidotes. We practice something called replacement by opposite. So if you are a type of person that has a lot of jealousy or competitiveness, then you do have to cultivate mudita. Another thing that's very common in the modern world is feeling sorry for ourselves and comparing to others, and feeling sorry for ourselves because we don't have the same opportunities as others. And so gratitude, which is very closely linked to mudita, can really help with that. So the kind of hedonistic, materialistic world is always telling us that we need more. You need more beautiful things, more status symbols, a more beautiful home, a nicer car, a better kitchen, more jewels, whatever it is. And if we believe that, those pressures are very real. If they come at you through media all the time, then that can get into the mind. We are kind of, minds are porous, and they are affected by these various forces that are around, the flow of the world, the flow of kilesa, the flow towards hedonism, consumerism. You need more peak sensual experiences to be happy. We get that message all the time. But actually, it's not true. You need to be moderate in your appetites and in your activities, and we need to consciously cultivate contentment, and that is actually the foundation of a genuine well-being. But we don't hear that message very often, that the true cause of well-being is knowing moderation, having a sensible and contained appetites in sensuality and greed, cultivating contentment, and being generous, sharing what we have. When we cultivate those things, when we meditate, the mind is in a state where it can be gladdened, brightened, brought inwards, and then you start to experience a greater level of well-being that comes from samatha, peaceful meditation states. But that getting peace in meditation requires, the whole thing about sila is very closely linked to knowing the right amount. It's the middle way, part of the middle way, sila, samadhi, and panya, keeping the mind in the middle. That's it's not just the rules we keep, it's the principle, keeping the mind in a balanced state. The precepts serve the function of not allowing the mind to become too on fire with greed or hatred in a coarse level, and then refining that principle. We have to keep an eye on our minds to make sure that our minds are not falling into too much greed or too much hatred, too much craving, too much aversion. So another thing about mudita is a beautiful statement made by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. I think there are about 7 billion human beings in the world now. He said, if you sincerely cultivate mudita, you increase your chances of happiness by 7 billion. So it's like, if you might not be particularly happy, but if you know of one other person who is, and you have the ability to be happy for them, then yeah, you have a capacity to increase your happiness. So I want to do a guided meditation, and I want the guided meditation to start with gratitude, because as I said, I really feel that gratitude flows into this attitude of appreciation. And with gratitude, a lot of people have a reaction because we may have been told you should be grateful. And so a lot of people have a resistance. They don't want to incline their mind towards feeling gratitude. They want that to arise spontaneously without somebody telling them that they should feel grateful. The problem is, sometimes it doesn't arise spontaneously because the mind becomes habituated to negative reactions. And so we might, if a person has a habit of feeling sorry for themselves and feeling that they don't have enough, then the mind isn't going to incline towards feeling grateful. And gratitude is an incredibly helpful attitude because it's a large component of what makes contentment possible. So if you are grateful to the things that are good and the good things that you've experienced, not just focusing on the things that you feel you can be upset about, then you can have a greater level of contentment. And that greater level of contentment is what makes it possible for you to come and sit and feel well-being. And feelings of well-being are the foundation for samma samadhi, for skillful, bright, established meditation states to develop. So sometimes we have to sow the causes deliberately, consciously. And so it's not a matter of you should feel grateful. It's a matter of, have you recognized the things that you've been given? It's a question. And we just ask ourselves, have I recognized the things I've been given this lifetime? Have I recognized the people who really have helped me? And not to feel guilty, but to feel blessed and to experience the joy of appreciation. So I think this is a fruitful meditation practice. So let's begin. Closing your eyes, sitting with a fairly straight posture. Becoming aware of the feelings of the in and out breathing. Aware of the breath as it comes in at the nose, chest, abdomen, aware of the feelings involved in an in-breath, and aware of those feelings as the breath leaves the body, abdomen, chest, nose. Aware of one in-breath, put. Aware of one out-breath, do. Training mindful awareness to know the feelings of the breath, moment by moment. Bringing fresh energy, in-breath, whatever the day has been, putting that down, the out-breath. Aware of one in-breath, put. Aware of one out-breath, do. I'm aware that whenever we think of parents, there are mixed experiences, sometimes good and happy memories, other times painful memories. Not everybody's parents were great parents in some respects. However, raising a baby simply to have been fed, nourished, bathed, clothed, is an incredible amount of work. So forgetting, not thinking of the idealized projection of the perfect love we would have liked to have received necessarily, but thinking of the fact that somebody or some people fed us, bathed us, clothed us, sought medicine when we were sick, and just appreciating that, allowing oneself to appreciate the work, the effort, the kindness that was shown to us on that level, and feeling grateful. Sometimes some people live with grandparents or aunties, or some people are adopted. Some people had foster parents, whoever it was that cared for you in this human family. Just thinking of that person. Many times as babies, we woke up crying, and that disturbed somebody's sleep. That person come, feed us, nurse us, settle us, put us back to sleep. Scores of times, hundreds of times, possibly thousands of times. Thinking of that kindness, appreciating and feeling grateful to the people who parented us in early childhood. Aware of one in-breath put, aware of one out-breath do, feeling thankful, feeling appreciation, recognizing what has been given. Once babies begin to be able to crawl, they do not have enough mindfulness or self-awareness to protect themselves from injury. They are, however, very curious and very energetic. What does that mean? It means that hundreds of times, thousands of times, we were about to hurt ourselves, and somebody protected us from harm. And simply being mindful that there were adults, people older than us, that kept an eye on us, stopped us falling downstairs, stopped us banging a head into a table, caught us when we started to walk as we were falling over. Many, many, many times. Whoever that person was, whoever those people were, just simply being mindful. We received a great deal of care, attention, which saved us from harming ourselves many times. As you began to be able to walk, people stopped you from running onto the road. People restrained you from falling into a swimming pool or a lake, a river. People held up your head in the bath water while they bathed you. We were not capable of taking care of ourselves. We needed an enormous amount of care. And somebody gave that to us. So simply being mindful of what has been given, recognizing, feeling thankful. Aware of one in-breath put, aware of one out-breath do, aware of what has been given, feeling grateful. When we went to school, there may have been many things that we didn't enjoy, but that is not the focus of this contemplation. The fact that we are capable of understanding information, that you have the attention span, the capacity to comprehend, you have language skills, reading, writing, speaking skills. Many people helped us to have those abilities. When you think of the implications, the opportunities that has given you, eventually you heard some Dhamma talks or some guided meditations or read some of the Buddha's teachings and see the incredible benefit this brings to our well-being, our sense of perspective, to having a refuge. Then it's suitable to bring to mind all of those people that helped us to have those abilities. So thinking of a particular teacher, one that you liked perhaps, recognizing that that person or those people helped you to develop your comprehension, your intellect, your capacity to listen and discern. Breathing in Put, breathing out Do, mindful, aware of what has been given and the opportunities that this gave, feeling thankful. I'd like you to bring to mind now the Bodhisattva who later became the Buddha, Sumedha, 4 Asankhya plus 100,000 eons ago, had the ability to become an arahant. He was a very skilled yogi. When he saw Dipankara Buddha, he was inspired. He had the thought, rather than become liberated today through hearing the teachings of the Buddha, what if I too were to cause a multitude to cross over? And he set the intention to aspire to full Buddhahood. Dipankara saw a muddy spot in the path of Dipankara, who was wandering with his following, and he lay down in the mud and had the thought, may the Lord Buddha's feet not become dirty, may he step on me, and due to the merit of this act, may I become like him. When Lord Buddha came to him, Lord Buddha was aware of his abilities and his aspiration, and he pronounced in for Asankhya and 100,000 eons, this great yogi will be the teaching Buddha, Gautama, Shakyamuni Buddha. From that time, the Bodhisattva spent literally millions of lives since the time that he could have been an arahant, since the time that he could have been fully liberated and experiencing no dukkha, the mind experiencing unshakable peace. But instead, he spent millions of lives accumulating the merit, making the karmic connections, developing the community, working alongside all of these other beings who would be his great disciples, his patrons, and the millions who would come afterwards. Millions of lives developing qualities, perfecting qualities, and accumulating merits. And just thinking of that with appreciation. Wow, that such a being would do that. He had us in mind. He didn't do it for himself. And so giving rise to some appreciative awareness. Such beings exist, such beings make awesome efforts, incredible sacrifices to help us. And we can have mudita, appreciative joy for the efforts of the Bodhisattva. Millions of bodhisattvas in a way, life after life after life, millions of incarnations as a being bent on perfecting virtue and qualities and accumulating immeasurable merits in order to be able to help as many people as possible, to have perfect skill in teaching, perfect wisdom. What Lord Buddha did in ancient India was remarkable. That he was able to do it was dependent upon all of those lives that came beforehand. That Lord Buddha established an order where people from every caste could go forth. That was revolutionary in a culture where the Brahmins were the highest. If a person was free from debt, had their parents' permission, had suitable faculties, whatever the caste, a sweeper, a tailor, a barber, a prince, a Brahmin, all could go forth. Later, Lord Buddha included women in the order. Bhikkhus, samaneras, bhikkhunis, samaneris. In his time, 2,600 years ago, that was revolutionary. That sent a powerful message, was a powerful teaching. Beings have equal spiritual potential. It is not dependent upon caste or gender. Appreciating what Lord Buddha accomplished and the millions and millions of beings who benefited from having access to teachings on Dhala, Sila, Bhavana, and who had opportunities to practice because he laid down the order, gave the opportunities, explained the teachings, having appreciation, recognition, what has been given, breathing input, breathing out do, having mudita, appreciative joy, empathic joy with the abilities, the qualities, the merit, the wisdom of the Buddha, and feeling thankful. It is because of the merit of the Bodhisattva and the abilities of the Buddha that the teachings have lasted this long. Because Lord Buddha knew how to lay down the teachings, how to structure the Vinaya, the monks' rules, because Lord Buddha taught monks and nuns and laymen and laywomen 84,000 Dharma verses. 2,600 years later, we still have access to those teachings, those methods. Recognizing the causes that came before this opportunity and feeling blessed, feeling grateful, feeling thankful, breathing in Bund, breathing out Do. Allowing those feelings of appreciation to fill the heart area. Appreciation, gratitude. Recognizing what has been given, feeling thankful, feeling grateful, and allowing that gratitude to fill the heart and mind. Breathing in, I rejoice in Lord Buddha's qualities, in Lord Buddha's wisdom, in Lord Buddha's gifts. Breathing out, feeling blessed, feeling grateful, feeling appreciative. And recognizing what a pleasant emotion it is, how nice it is to feel full of appreciation and contentment. How wonderful to recognize how much has been given. I'd like you to bring to mind now the great disciples, those foremost in wisdom, foremost in meditative abilities. There were great disciples who could explain complex teachings in brief for people who were not especially intellectually gifted. But once they understood the basic teachings, they were liberated after practicing correctly. There were great disciples who could take a simple teaching and expand it, expound it, for people who had a disposition that needed things to be explained in more detail. And when those practitioners understood correctly and practiced correctly, they were liberated. Just appreciating the abilities of this incredible order and what they gave. This lineage of wisdom teachings, this lineage of enlightened beings. Every single one of the enlightened beings received the teachings from somebody. And many passed it on to others. "2,600 years. They say one generation is 15 years. That's over 170 generations who bring to mind this vision of 170 generations that received teachings, practiced well, practiced correctly, got benefits, and shared those teachings with the next generation. It's not difficult to be thankful when we truly recognize how many people have helped us to meet these teachings. 173 generations, millions and millions and millions of people. Recognizing what has been given and feeling thankful, feeling appreciative. Because tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of monks and nuns memorized teachings, spent hundreds and thousands of hours memorizing teachings for centuries before they were written down. This was the effort of the noble Sangha. And then thinking of those who wrote them down, handed those texts down, generation after generation. Motivated by the wish that others would benefit in the same way that they had benefited. The Buddhist monastic order is supported by the gifts of others. Bring to mind now how many hundreds of millions of people woke up in the morning and prepared food for monks and nuns, for their teachers, and for those who might be teachers in the future, and put alms in the alms bowls. 170 generations of lay people offering alms, giving freely, supporting the Sangha so that they could practice, realize what the teachings are pointing to, and encourage others. Thinking of the generosity of 170 generations of lay people who have supported the Buddhasasana, and rejoicing, breathing in Bud, breathing out Do. I rejoice in the kindness and the generosity of the lay people who helped the Sangha to hand down the teachings, which enabled me to hear them and have an opportunity to practice them. The wonderful thing about mudita is we don't have to give anything. We just open the heart in recognition of goodness and allow ourselves to resonate with that goodness and appreciate it. In doing that, we ourselves feel happy, thinking of the incredible generosity, mountains and mountains and mountains of nourishing food, mountains of cloth, cities and cities of monasteries and kutis. If you put them all together, beautiful Buddhist art, incredible sculptures, paintings, caves, temples, the expression of the faith of the laity over 2,600 years. Currently there are 500 million Buddhists. That's just now. We have 173 generations before that. Incredible kindness, generosity, skillful acts of self-sacrifice from billions of people. So just recognizing what those people gave and what the implications were, and appreciating what we have, and feeling thankful, feeling blessed. Now I'd like to, having got the attitude of thankfulness and appreciation established in the heart and mind, becoming a little bit more localized, present moment based. I'd like you to think of one person in your life who you know who has some virtuous qualities. Just one person. Imagine that person in front of you, smiling, and simply rejoicing. Breathing in, I rejoice in this person's goodness. Breathing out, may this person be well. Breathing in, I appreciate the good qualities of this person. Breathing out, may they be well, may they be happy. Now I'd like you to bring to mind somebody that you don't know personally, but that you have heard has been very generous or very kind. Just choose one person and bring them to mind. Recognize, recollect the skillful thing that they have done, and rejoice. Breathing in, I rejoice in this person's skillful acts or wholesome qualities. Breathing out, may this person be well, be happy. Now I'd like you to bring to mind your own current skillful efforts, bringing to mind that you chanted this evening, listen to Dharma reflections, are practicing meditation, and rejoice in this skillful effort. Breathing in, I rejoice in these skillful efforts. I have mudita, appreciative joy for these good efforts. Breathing out, may I be happy. And now bring to mind the other people in this session. Don't have to know everybody, but just being aware. This evening, 75 people, many different countries. Everybody's been chanting, listening to Dhamma reflections, meditating, making efforts to cultivate the skillful, abandon the unskillful, to purify the mind. Breathing in, I rejoice in the skillful efforts of everybody this evening, this morning, today, wherever you are. Breathing out, may everybody who has joined this session be well, be happy, be safe. And now for the last couple of minutes of the session, we're just going to do breath meditation, coming back to the feeling of the breath. When we do these Brahma Vihara practices, gladden the mind, brighten the mind, tends to have the effect of lowering, lessening negative qualities. Hindrances tend to become less powerful, and the mind tends to incline to be with the breath happily, contentedly. So just being aware of the feelings of the breath. One in breath, Bud. One out breath, Do. Wherever one in breath, Bud. Wherever one out breath, Do. Mindful of breathing. Okay, that brings us to the end of our first guided meditation on gratitude and mudita. many people can have the experience of feeling a bit frustrated with themselves for not making as much effort as they would like to. And sometimes if we hassle ourselves too much about practice, that won't actually help us practice more. But when you appreciate your skillful efforts, if you genuinely appreciate your skillful efforts, you will want to make more skillful efforts. So we have to find a balance of carrot and stick. Encourage yourself and appreciate your good efforts. And sometimes we do need a bit of a scolding. And oftentimes we need just to be reminded and encouraged. You can see lots of serene looking faces. That's nice. Isn't gratitude and appreciation pleasant? So much nicer than feeling resentful and holding grudges. Excellent. JC and Joyce, I'm going to have to call it a little bit short this evening because I have a Zoom meeting at 3 a.m. with 49 abbots for the virtual international elders meeting. We usually come together and try to see each other, but this year we are doing it via Zoom. And it's a 4-hour meeting. So I'm going to do my last meditation session and then get to bed a bit earlier so that I'm fresh for the 4-hour abbots meeting. So let's do our chanting. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, may my spiritual teachers and guides of great virtue, my mother, my father, and my relatives, the sun and the moon, and all virtuous leaders of the world, may the highest gods and evil forces, celestial beings, guardian spirits of the earth, and the Lord of death, may those who are friendly, indifferent, or hostile, may all beings receive the blessings of my life. May they soon attain the threefold bliss and realize the deathless. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, and through this act of sharing, may all desires and attachments quickly cease, and all harmful states of mind, until I realize Nibbana in every kind of birth. May I have an upright mind, with mindfulness and wisdom, austerity and vigor. May the forces of delusion not take hold, nor weaken my resolve. The Buddha is my excellent refuge. Unsurpassed is the protection of the Dhamma. The solitary Buddha is my noble Lord. The Sangha is my supreme support. Through the supreme power of all these, may darkness and delusion be dispelled.
Sadhu, 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 Ajahn. We hope you have a good 4 hours of meeting tomorrow morning.
Yes. So,
And we see you again, Ajahn, in 2 weeks' time. And we
yes,
hope to
okay.
hear more of your sharing. Some of them has read your emails, but there are quite a few of them who hasn't received your email as well. So if those of you who like to receive the email that I had forwarded yesterday, please drop me a mail, drop me a line, and I'll forward to you as soon as I can.
Yes, I've been practicing with, I don't know why I respond to having to deal with Thai bureaucracies with feelings of mild depression. It's just, but that's the way it is. And so I am on retreat, so I have time to meditate. So I have this interesting experience of a certain amount of clarity and radiance, which is aware of feelings of dejection and depression. And I think when you're forced to do things that you just don't like and you have to do a lot of it for a long time, that can be the consequence. And but it's the human realm, and sometimes we have to work hard doing things that we don't enjoy. But if the outcome is worth it, then we do what is to be done. Just to give you a little bit of something to rejoice about, many people helped to publish Ajahn Achalo's book. So look, yay, we got books. So they are available, the 12 Talks books, Process of Realization, and the 3,000 Hours of Meditation in Bodh Gaya. They are available as PDFs, digital PDFs at the website, Peace Beyond Suffering, but they will be making their way to the branch monasteries and to some meditation centers in Malaysia and Singapore and Melbourne. So, Anumodana. Just to mention about the feeding the hungry people in Bodh Gaya, a couple of people mentioned that they were still interested to continue supporting. So I just wanted to mention that I would be willing to liaise to do that for another month or two, if people want to do that. So the tourist season hasn't, obviously things in India are difficult. There are a lot of hungry people in Bodh Gaya. And so supporters of Ajahn Achalo, my students, and supporters of Anandagiri, we have been feeding 250 families for 3 months. We really have. And there is still enough money to make one more transfer. And so that would be October. But if people want to help for November and December, and then hopefully some tourists are coming back and things are getting a bit more normal, I have to keep an eye on it. But if you are willing to keep helping, I am willing to keep arranging those transfers as well. So up to you. All of those who did already help, I rejoice, and I wish you well. Okay.
Thank you, Ajahn.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing all the lacing for us on the act of Dana Parami. Thank you very much.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, John.
Gotta go.
See you
Bye-bye.
next 2 weeks. Bye-bye.
Yeah.